So appealing the no's. Every service provider should have an appeal process. Public agencies in Canada must have an appeal process. So for example, all government ministries and all school districts in the province of British Columbia and across Canada have appeals processes. So here are the steps in an appeal, which kind of apply across the board. You have to ask the last person who said no to your request for their response in writing. So this is just a little kind of, so for example, the principal has said, no, you're not going to be invited to the IEP. We've decided it saves time not to have parents there. It's highly unlikely, okay? I'm just making a broad, just to keep you amused and engaged here. Then you can say to the principal, could you put that decision in writing, please? Because I'd like to appeal it. And often people hesitate about putting things like that in writing, right? Because they kind of know that that's not really on. And then you can say to the principal, or you can contact the school district and just ask them what the appeals process is, so that you know what the process is that you're working within. And you need to read the details of the process carefully, the timelines, the forms required. And usually it's not all that tough at a school district level to make an appeal. And often if you go to your district PAC, maybe the Parents Advisory Committee, maybe they have someone who could help you. If writing in English is not easy for you, I'd suggest you find some help in your community. And if you need some sort of, someone to read over the last version of it to give you some input, ACT is always happy to do that. We are really quite short-staffed at the moment, so we can't do it necessarily on the day. But if you give us, within a few days, we can usually give you some feedback. And it's always a really good idea, and I think I say it later, to get other people's input before you send a letter, right? Because again, any kind of written document has a lot of forcefulness to it. So seeking the assistance of an advocate, gathering all the information required to support your appeal. And again, those documents, the very polite requests you've made, maybe you didn't get an answer. So your next request is, sorry, but I haven't had an answer yet to the request I made 2 weeks ago. I've been waiting patiently, but I'm very concerned. When will I have a response? And again, thinking about your goal. So, get advice from other people. If you are asking for vitamin C therapy to be implemented at the school, maybe you'll get advice from ACT and from your friends that that's actually not going to, you're not really, that's not the right venue for that particular special interest of yours, right? But they may work with you and say, don't you think this is really your concern? Aren't you really concerned about his behaviors? I mean, you actually think that the vitamin C is going to help his behaviors, but maybe there's something that the school should be doing in terms of his behaviors. Could we refocus your request? So that's a way of sort of moving forward to helping you and how you can help other families. So being patient is important. This process is seldom speedy. However, you do need to set deadlines. You do need to follow up in writing, and you do need to be, the old adage that the squeaky wheel gets the oil is true. If you don't follow up, they have a lot of pressing concerns and a lot of families who have issues. So you're going to have to keep going. So internal appeals, that's when the person who's doing the review is the supervisor. So internal into the school, for example. As I said to you before, you need to exhaust all the internal appeals at the school level before you go to the school district. And sometimes you'll find someone in the school district who has a clearer view of it, and maybe they have more information, maybe they have more resources, maybe they have new ideas, maybe they're better educated, who knows? Don't assume that you're not going to be heard. Don't go into it saying, writing a letter saying, I know this is useless, and that you all stick together, and that no one cares about our kids in school district bleep. But that's not going to get you very far, right? I mean, it's not that they're going to ignore your letter, no, but it's always better to to state your case with as little emotion as possible. External appeals happen outside the system. So you could say the school district, well, that's kind of, is the school district within the system or outside? I'm not sure. But you have this sense of going up the chain. So if the supervisor in the school, i.e. the principal, can't deal with it, going to the school district will be helpful. Avenues of external appeal. So if it's a problem within the school district and you're not able to resolve it, a letter to the Ministry of Education, is often very helpful. If it's in the Ministry of Children and Family Development, they have, and I should have added it here, there is the BC representative for children and youth, Mary Turpel-Lafont, who is a fantastic advocate for children and youth, and she actually takes complaints up to age 24 for children and youth with special needs. So that's only a couple of years now, recognizing that often it's the transition to adulthood where a lot of young people with autism and other special needs face problems. So in the Ministry of Social Development and Social Innovation, that's the ministry that controls CLBC. So there's the CLBC complaint review process there, and then there's also the quality service advocate, and that's often for when young people or adults live in group homes or in ministry-funded residential placements. She is the person who you go and talk to and make you can phone these people and ask for help and find out where you go next. And you can also call us if you're not sure which it is, because sometimes it's not that clear. So there's the link for MCFD's internal complaints process. I have helped families before who've had problems in their with their local social worker getting appealing an unfair decision, and we have helped them appeal within MCFD's complaint process, and it's actually been fairly effective. But sometimes you just need someone to hold your hand and say, yeah, you can do it, this will work, and here's the phone number for your district. And I found that the people I spoke to in the cases I've had, the person you speak to with your appeal is actually quite helpful. And then, as I said, if it's outside, if you can't get that addressed within the ministry itself, you can also go to the representative of children and youth and ask their advice. And think of them as an organization that we can give you advice, but they're highly specialized in this. This is what they do. And they have said to me, how can we get the word out to families that the rep's office is somewhere they can go if they have issues that they want to advocate for? So they deal particularly with the Ministry for Children and Family Development, concerns around that. They don't deal with the education system. Within the Ministry of Education, you can appeal to the Board of Education, and I once did this when my son was quite young. It was a very tough year, and I asked for a meeting with the entire Board of Directors of the school district, all the school trustees, and it was very effective. And I just told them about my son's experiences in the school district and what had happened. And they listened, and things got better. But I'm just trying to say to you that it's not that, you have to organize yourself, and it was an egregious situation. It was pretty extreme. But I think that there is a lot, if parents think about it, they're able to do this. And you may not want to. I mean, it may not be your personality. I'm by nature a troublemaker. So, and I always think, if this is happening to me, what the heck is happening to other families, right? So I think it's, for those of you who are naturally much shyer than I am, it's harder. But sometimes it's a way of making you think, okay, this is really important to families, and I'm going to do this. And you may need help. You may need advice, but you can go through with it. So you'll see here the decisions with the appeal process with the school district. I'm not going to go through it in details because each child is so different and each school district is quite different. but that there is a process. And if you're at the point where you're really frustrated and need some advice, then you can come to ACT and we can try and work it through, brainstorm with you. Or you can call that, there's a telephone number at the bottom there that you can phone and ask for advice for. But I would always, stress that it's important to, read the sections from the ACT manual, have a look at the special education policy, document, because if you're going right to the top to appeal, what you need to do is to be able to make your case that you've done everything reasonably to be expected from a parent, and that you're not getting anywhere. And that makes it difficult for you not to, it makes it much more likely that you'll be heard. So the Ministry of Social Development and Social Innovation funds Community Living BC, which provides services for adults with autism and other special needs who have IQs under the normal range. So it's difficult how they work it out, but really 70 and below. So if 100 is the average IQ, if the child or an adult has an IQ of 70 or under, then they are required to provide services, but there are waiting lists. So you will have to advocate for that, and you need to get organized early. We have a new chapter on the ACT website, in the ACT's manual, chapter 12 on, employment, preparing for employment, and that has a lot of information about the transition to adulthood, the role of the Ministry of Social Development and Social Innovation. So Community Living BC, and actually I should add one more thing. There are a small group of adults with autism and or fetal alcohol syndrome who do get funding even though their academic IQs are over 70. And this is recognition that functionally they're very impaired. And one of the things you'll find you may have to advocate for as your child gets older is that academically he's doing really well, but functionally he's very vulnerable. Or maybe he has ongoing behavioral issues, so you don't want him in the community without support. And this is something that there is some wiggle room for, and you need to come back to ACT, just ask us to help you walk through that, and we can help you sort of figure out what the next steps are in that. So the CLBC complaints policy is that when parents have concerns and complaints, here's where they've detailed their complaints policy. So you can go and look on their website and what that is. And again, this is the advocate for service quality. The advocate reports to the minister. She doesn't work directly for the government. And I'm saying she because for many years it's been a woman called Jane Holland, but I think they're about to appoint someone new. And again, if you have problems with CLBC services, what I explained before about if you have problems in your discussion with the CLBC worker, you don't necessarily go directly from there to the advocate, right? You actually see if you can speak with her. If she can't help or he can't help, could I speak with your supervisor? Who's the team leader, right? You go up through the food chain. And then if you do not get any help or if you're not successful, then that's where you go to the advocate. And you've documented all your attempts to reasonably go through this process, right? Now, the Office of the Ombudsperson. If you think a provincial government ministry, a local government, or other provincial public authority has treated you unfairly, we may be able to help. So we don't deal with the Ombudsperson very often at ACT, but there are some instances where you may find this useful. And I put that link there.